Because what?
I have learned something.
Oh, which is what?
If you put something like that together,
Yeah.
then manage the whole thing instead of
Yeah, you got to do.
have a. Hannah, do you want to do any?
All right, so I know it's absolutely ridiculous that I'm going to use a microphone for these people right here, but this is something that we're recording to have on our YouTube channel, so this is going to benefit those who are watching, you know, in the future, whenever. But LRE would like to welcome Paul and Michael to start their presentation on their book that they co-authored together, ReConnect. Having read the book, I think it's really wonderful and valuable information.
Thank you.
And this tool will be available on our YouTube channel once the live stream ends. It's a video that we will have, much like all of our Sunday services, as a resource that we can direct people to at any point in time. So without further ado, go right ahead.
Thank you. Are we all hooked up and?
You're hooked up.
Okay. Well, what a massive crowd. I'm so happy you all got a seat. No, thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you for the church for inviting us. We're small, but we're mighty, okay? I'm Paul. I'm that guy. He's that guy, which I'll have him introduce himself in a moment. But let me just give you a real quick idea about why it is I'm standing up here. So my field's personality psychology. Been doing it for 45 years. I choke every time I say that number. This is my sixth book. I wrote 5 previous books with my former spouse, Barbara Barron, and this is the one I'm honored to write with Michael. And I spent 35 years as a jury consultant, so that's a person who works with trial lawyers in high-profile civil and criminal cases to try and understand who these jurors are and how they're going to mess up your case and where their biases are, their prejudices are, and how to communicate with them in a way that makes the most sense and present your case in the best way. So this is really the culmination of my career, and it's really developed more into a calling than even a mission. And my personal mission is to help prevent children and young adults from suffering with anxiety and depression, and spare parents the agony of losing a child to suicide. So that's my laser focus, and Michael's as well. So I come at it from a research point of view. Michael comes at it from a clinical point of view. So that's why this marriage, I think, works so well. One of the reasons it works so well. So what I'm going to do is to kind of introduce you to this kind of new way of looking at people and understanding how that framework affects anxiety and depression, especially in the digital age. So let me start by we're going to talk about anxiety and depression, how some children's personality types predispose them to be more inclined than others, and this comes out of a lot of research that I've done, how parents and children are similar and different from each other, and how that impacts the relationship. I think that one of the big consequences of this whole thing is that digital technology and addiction has really dehumanized us. We're losing our ability to relate as human beings, to use our senses in such a rapid way that it's very disturbing. I think that the speed at which we are extinguishing our humanness is heartbreaking and breathtaking. But I think that there's good news, and that is the antidote to that is to rehumanize. And rehumanizing, as it suggests, is having people get in touch with others, in this case, parents and children, in a way that we think makes sense. And that's what the book is really all about. So then take any questions and comments. So I want to turn it over to Michael to start talking about anxiety, depression, and then I will jump back in.
My name is Mike Shelby, and this is my first book with Paul, and my spouse warned me that if we jump right into the next book, then that'll
Divorce?
probably be the end of that marriage without giving it any type of delay. But I do very much enjoy working with Paul. I do come at it from the clinical side. I am a therapist. I am a counselor. I work in this field for many years. Started back in 2002 with Dr. David Greenfield. Eventually, right around 50, went back to school, got a second master's degree in psychology, became an LPC, licensed professional counselor, opened up my own office, and very much, same as Paul, I dedicate my life today to two things and only two things that I know anything about my life. That's technology. I have a degree in computer science, and addiction, and I work at the intersection of those two disciplines, technology and addiction, and this is how we got introduced, and we started working on developing Paul's approach to types of people that, again, I cannot bring Myers-Briggs into the situation, but this is how the idea that different personalities react and communicate differently really grabbed me. It really, really something that I see in my practice. I see it in the rooms of recovery that are populated by people of a certain type. They're disproportionately represented in mental health field where I work, and the addiction field that I am part of the recovery community as well. For reasons unknown, maybe feeling deeper, the female population is represented much higher in this particular segment. 20% of adolescents who have experienced mental health issues because of digital addiction have contemplated suicide. 9% have actually physically tried to take their life. A lot of them succeeded. This is, again, it's one point. I've lost a brother to suicide, and if there is one life that this book and this work can save between two of us, my job here is done. So we do it for very, very personal reasons. Almost 3 million children just in this country live with severe depression. What is depressing them? We don't have active war in this country. Other countries, yes, not this country. Most of them have food, not all of them. This is a subject of research, and this is a subject of dialogue and conversation that we simply don't have enough time to get into right now. But it is critical to understand how much the epidemic of mental health is affecting our young people at this point. And 60% of those that suffer from mental health challenges in this young population receive absolutely no care at all. Lots of times, the parents, the educators, even their friends are not even aware that until it's too late. And by that time, people go, what happened? We don't know. It was such a happy child, straight A's, good school, good parents, no abuse, no drugs. What happened? Hopefully, our book can shed light on what happened and what to do about this. Depression, again, I don't want to state the obvious, I don't need to read it. Depression is a very significant risk factor for suicide. People that don't feel good about themselves, about the future, they're depressed, are very exposed. And it is now a second leading cause of death in children. and adolescent in this very susceptible group of teenagers through mid-20s, just a decade. Digital addiction is a perfect storm that is causing this particular issue. You will see in later slides with data that I very frequently and on purpose I come disconnected with a goal in mind from this device. Anybody, do you remember when these came on the scene and it became a thing? I keep doing the second time I did that. The rates, it's not that the year is important, but the rates of what happened that year is critical. It is, it's right there, I jumped the gun. It skyrocketed, basically. The depression, mental health crisis exploded once these devices came on the scene. And there's a good reason for that. There are so many excuses, reasons, fear of missing out, and results in hiding behind the screens, online harassment, and things that are, we didn't have to deal with this 20 years ago. We didn't have, yes, there was bullying, but it's much harder to bully somebody face to face when you have to look them in the eye. Plus, they can fight back. You never know, right? Cyberbullying is anonymous. This degree of anonymity that these screens have given us has really, really created this culture of anything goes. I'm free to say anything. I'm free to pass. My opinion is as good as your facts over there. Because people are spending so much time doom scrolling, fun scrolling, just scrolling, there is a big, big impact in the physical world. Sleep deprivation is just but one example. You know, we have a young person with us, right? I'm not picking on you, right? But just how often do you choose to stay in bed, next TikTok video, next YouTube, next, you know, instead of like, I'm tired, I'm gonna go sleep, I'm gonna read a couple of pages, eyes are getting sleepy, I'm just gonna go to sleep. How often that happens? I mean, I'll own that. I will own that. That it unless I am conscious about putting it down and closing my eyes, it will take all of my attention. It'll keep me up for much later, up till I want to stay, until I want to stay late. Finally, face-to-face interaction, what Paul said, rehumanizing. Humanity have been talking face-to-face now for millennia. Yes, sitting around the fire and banging on rocks, face-to-face. Screens have robbed us of that. We hide behind the screens. I don't need to look at your eyes, your eyes, your eyes, or even your eyes. I don't have to do that. I have everything I need right here in front of me. No, I don't. I don't have the connection. I don't have that human connection that is so important. Biologically, we're wired for connection and society and community, basically. It robs completely the community. My friends are on the screen here. It doesn't give you the same oxytocin. Does not get generated from a screen. It's created from touch with each other. And all the doom scrolling, all the news of the world, the killing, the wars, you know, I don't know, Middle East, the Gaza and Ukraine, and all the horrible things, blood sells, horror sells, right? Kittens are cute to look at, and they get looked at, but they don't sell as much as the horror. Fear-mongering is off the scale, and this is getting now simply, it's an assault of really, really bad news. There is a real world cost of digital addiction. I'm going to mention a few. These are my 5 big ones, especially with onset of AI here. I don't need to study. I don't need to remember anything. Knowledge without understanding. Anything I need. Siri, give me that fact. and that facts materialize. I don't need to know anything except how to ask the question. So much false data out there now, and it looks real, and it sounds real. How no one is educating our young people about how to be able to tell reality from fiction, just to be able to tell what's real, what's not. We used to, with, I don't know, Walter Cronkite, Democrats, Republicans, independents, everyone shared at least the same reality. Interpretation differed, but we shared the same. That is no longer the case. The same exact facts are now perceived as representing my reality versus your reality, and the true realities have nothing to do with each other. This is a big one. Number 3 is really, really big. Culture of immediacy. I don't have time to read, you know, a long book, 800-page Dune book. I don't have time for that. Give me a synopsis. You just give me the bullet points of that. If I'm not amused in 5 or 10 seconds flat, I'm not interested. It's too boring. Everything has to be immediate. The delayed gratification is one of the most fundamental developmental skills, right? Do you remember the 2 marshmallow experiment back in the 50s, 60s, where they gave a marshmallow to a kid and said, if you can just sit with that marshmallow and not eat it, when I come back, I'll give you a second one. And the ones that could sit and not eat that marshmallow actually did much better in life. Delayed gratification. They got 2 marshmallows in just a few minutes. That's gone. That is completely gone at this point in time. We already spoke about online bullying. This is also a big one. It affects men and women alike at this point. Again, younger and younger and younger and younger, when biologically and mentally and emotionally there is no capacity yet to process that the images that are being seen is at best a performative art, at best. It's not a reality. It is perceived as reality. When reality comes into play and there is physical intimacy, all of a sudden there's a huge sense of disappointment. What is here now, hugging me and with me, has nothing to do with what I saw on the screen 3 hours ago. I want that. That's fun. And this is not. And therefore, the biological, emotional connection that comes with earlier and earlier, comes from experiencing reality of feelings and emotional connection prior to everything else, is absent. Imagine a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, you know, just getting into something that might be even illegal or horrifying. How that can skew and damage a young mind, affected in a way that can maybe never be repaired in the future, even by skilled professionals like myself. Memory and reasoning gets outsourced to AI, relationships with technology takes over with other people, because we see so much horror. Empathy is numb. Relationships became very superficial. Everything's performative. Attention shrinks. There's no joy in this summer. We're gonna go to the beach. You know, we're gonna go to Disneyland in July. You know, okay, whatever. What's next on the TikTok? You know, completely losing this ability, face-to-face communication, just like emotional involvement with a partner, basically becomes boring. Games are very addictive. creativity, I don't need to create anything. I just ask ChatGPT, it'll make it for me. I have no time to wait. Everything's always on. Sleep gets thrown away in the sewer. Everything's about money. We separate our own echo chambers. Family gets eroded. This is the 2012 cutoff point. Major depression as measured, 135% increase. Boys, 161% increase once the phones came on the scene. Anxiety prevalence, same thing. You just see it skyrocketing. People are starting to catch on. We're playing catch up. It's just leveling off. Boys are still suffering. Okay. People started sounding the alarm. The anxious generation, professionals, see this and they're saying, this is not normal. This is not a fluke. This is real, okay? And people started doing stuff about it. Give you a second to read this. This is critical, okay? I don't need to read this slide. My own son, who screamed at me at 13 that he's living in digital Auschwitz because the Wi-Fi is turned off automatically at the router level for everybody at 10:30. And my friends don't have to live through that. And my own son, who is a father of a 16-week baby at this point, says, my son is not getting a smartphone until he's 21. That's from a 30-year-old, okay? Things have changed big time. CEOs know what they're doing. These things are designed to be addictive by design. Same thing, more of the same. I'm not going to repeat this. And I think this is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious. Fact. This is not made up. This is a fact. AI is something we're not going to get into today, but Paul and I are tracking it very carefully because the emergence of AI and the effect it has on our learning institutions, on our intelligence development, anything is like nothing we've ever seen. People are really asking for a little time out. It's developing faster than we can control it. And yet, this money-driven culture says, no, 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 everything's cool, everything's under control. Keep developing, keep rushing it ahead. You know, money uber alles, money above everything else. Profit, profit, eyes, profit, clicks, profit. That's our culture. But it is an out-of-control race. You don't want to have anything to do with a race. You don't want to be part of that race. That's out of control. Racing in control is hard enough. Racing out of control is not anything you want to do. Safety versus speed is a debate we have daily. And there are some very, very specific fears. You have seen it recently where Department of War, also known as Department of Defense, demanded Anthropic would release and just sign off, completely change their agreement to let them do whatever they want. Anthropic said no, and they said, you're a risk for our chain of acquisition and whatnot. We're not going to do business with you, plain and simple, because they have principles. This is where the book comes in. I took a little extra time on purpose, slowed it down a little bit. You know I can talk a lot faster and move a lot faster. I chose to do what I did today. So,
perfect. So I think of personality as a combination of nature and nurture. Nature is personality type, innate personality qualities, You're born with it, you come out of the womb that way, and they plant you in the ground. Hopefully, after a long, fulfilling life, you still have the same type. And so when I try to make the case that personality is inborn, I've said this in a room with 1,000 people. They weren't as smart or as good looking as you, but there were a lot of them. And so I asked 3 questions. How many of you have children? And about 80% of the hands go up. Say, how many of you have more than one child? And 70% of the hands stay up. And said, how many of your children are like each other? And every hand goes down. It's not scientific, but at this point I've collected so much anecdotal evidence on this, I can report to you. And you know, anybody who's got kids, or if you don't have kids, any siblings, you're raised by the same people. You can take 2 fraternal twins that are born 3 minutes apart, raised in exactly the same way, not generationally different, same religion, same socioeconomic status, same race, same parents, and they couldn't be more different. So I think personality born stays the same. Nurture is everything else. Most important thing I think is parents, but it's race, religion, education, socioeconomics, geography, culture, all those things. And so personality, who you are, is a combination of those 2 things. That's the way I look at it. So in the Myers-Briggs system, the Myers-Briggs, I have a little bone to pick with them because it's really the work of Carl Jung. The whole thing is Carl Jung. But Isabel Myers and her mother, Catherine Briggs, in the 20s, Catherine Briggs in the 1920s read a book by Jung about personality types, and she had been developing her own system, but she abandoned hers to embrace his. She interested her then young daughter, Isabel, who was a genius in this pursuit. Isabel spent her whole life studying personality type and creating an assessment called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator that's become the world's most widely used personality system. My bone to pick is it should be called the Jung-Myers model, and that's how I refer to it. So in the research that I've done, which I can explain to you, we didn't need to look at 16 personality types. We only need to look at 5, and I can explain that. So the 5 that and I don't use any Myers-Briggs or Jung-Myers language in this because I don't want to confuse people. They're words like intuitive and feeling that have their own connotations that influence people's opinions. First group are called responsible hard workers, and they're almost half the population. It's a lot of them. These are steady Eddie, solid, dependable, reliable, responsible people. They do the right thing. They follow the rules. They're compliant. They respect authority. They usually don't give their parents a lot of grief. Their clients, their closets are organized. Their clothes are laid out the night before. Not every kid, or every person, adult, but that's a general characteristic of these types. Second group, I call strategic problem solvers. And they're only 10% of the population, but they run the world. They are 80% of C-level executives. These are all the tech boys that brought us all this wonderful technology that now we don't know what the hell to do with. Sorry. And so they're smarty pants. They're people that, it's all about vision and logic. And so they're all about strategery, looking ahead, trying to figure out where things are going, very invested usually in their careers, in learning. They're learning monsters, knowledge monsters. And these are the people, kids and grown-ups, that often push back. So they can be challenging for parents because it's not, they push back. And they don't push back just to be a pain in the neck. They push back because that's how they learn. So if you give them a logical answer as children or adults, they're more likely to go, okay, that makes sense. But in the meantime, if you come at it from a more parent authority kind of model, that can be really challenging. I'm the parent, you're the kid, you do it because I say you do it. Again, about 10%. The next group are really different. They're adventurous free spirits, about 18% of the population. These are the kids that sort of are the adrenaline junkies. Live for the moment, enjoy their life, take risks. They tend to be impulsive. They think it's a good idea maybe to take dad's car for a ride when they're 15, but they don't think what's going to happen when I get back. There's something called an odometer that he can check. What happens if I crash it? They're very much in the moment. I know some of you have children like this. very much in the moment, very hands-on, very physical. They're not terribly introspective. And I should say, none of these types are better or worse, smart or dumber. They're just different. This is your nature. This is what drives you. Tend to take risks, competitive, and they don't tend to be very empathetic because they're more logic-based. Okay? Next group I call gentle, humble helpers, smaller percentage, but they're similar in the way that they're both in the moment, they're not terribly introspective, they're physical, they're hands-on, but these critters are very sensitive. Whereas these people are more logical, these people are very, very sensitive and tuned into other people. They're very nurturing. They usually take great care of pets, their siblings. They do not push back. They do what they're supposed to be doing, casual, easygoing, and they avoid conflict like the plague. So that's who these kids are. So we got those four, and then we come to what I call creative sensitive souls, about 17% of the population, and these are the empaths. These are the kids that feel things very deeply, are very perceptive about other people. These are the people that become psychologists. 17% of the population, about 85% of therapists are this. Why? Because that's who they are. Because they want to sit and go like this and listen to, interesting. And they can connect the dots about what your mother, what your father did, different, regardless of what their modality, their preferred modality of therapy is, they're very empathic. And they're also very idealistic. So they, and I'm one of them, see things the way, based on our values, the way the world should be, and it isn't, right? So we're also the most prone to anxiety and depression, by far the most prone. We worry about things, we got a spot there, oh, that is definitely cancer, my life's over, I better plan my funeral, I wonder if we should have cold cuts, or we can go pretty nuts, because this type has got a big imagination. This type does not necessarily have a big imagination. They see what it is, but they don't really look at why is it happening and what does it mean, but these guys are always looking at the meaning of things. That make sense to you so far? Okay. So, currently, the risk factors that the mental health community pays attention to, which are all valid for anxiety and depression, are trauma, alcohol, substance abuse, relationship problems, environment, family history, whether there's illness within themselves or others, neurodevelopment stuff. But my research, which I call rigorous new research, shows that there is something an additional one that might trump all of these. And that's the exciting part of what I think Michael and I have created in this book. So here's an example this is a study I did with 10,500 people. If you know anything about research, that is a big study. Majority of research that's published, and this is true, the sample is 100 for a psychology class 101 and kids that come from Long Island. That's it. That's what the research is. It's called a convenient sample for a reason. They're easy to get. Big samples that you can generalize, extrapolate the data to other things, is very hard to get, and it's expensive and time-consuming. And the reason I can say this is because I'm a little bit of a research nerd, at least research in this social psychology stuff, is every research paper that's published, the little hidden gem at the end is limitations. And that's the get out of jail card, get out of jail free card. It tells you all the reasons why this study doesn't make any sense. Sample wasn't big enough, wasn't extrapolable, there was conflict of interest. So it's a little scam in the research community that I didn't mean to digress there, but I obviously have a little thing about it. So these guys, 22% less likely to report severe anxiety and depression based on 10,500 people. These are adults, okay? Strategic problem solvers also less likely to report severe anxiety and depression. You get to the adventurous free spirits, the live for today, have a good time guys, and they're a little more. You get to the gentle, humble helpers who are all about nurturing. A lot of these folks are in healthcare, by the way. Not a surprise, right? Veterinarians, vet techs, dentists, hygienists, people that want to help people in real and concrete ways. If you're a physical therapist, you're moving the arm this way, right? You're doing this. You're not wondering what their mother said to them when they were 5. That's all this stuff. But this is this stuff, right? And you see concrete results. You go to PT for a year, and now you can do this, where before you could only do this. So it's a very concrete way of being in the world. Creative sensitive souls are off the chart for severe anxiety and depression. To me, this is very compelling research. So why is it, let me do this. Why is it that these two types are at the greatest risk? I'm glad you asked. So for gentle, humble helpers, right, the sensitive, nurturing kids, they don't see complexities, they see simple solutions. They see this is what's happened, and they don't ask why did it happen, is it going to happen again, but this is what's going on. They don't necessarily see options because they don't have great imaginations. They tend to be impulsive, which is a big deal because impulsivity has been clearly linked to suicide and other dangerous behavior. They live in the moment, they're not planning for the future, it's what's happening right now, and they feel great responsibility for other people. So that's those guys and women. The creative sensitive souls are different in a lot of ways. They're idealistic, easily disappointed. This is not the way the world should be. This is not the way we should treat people. We worry a lot and we obsess a lot. I haven't done any studies on this. I haven't seen any, but I think OCD is very connected to these types. Vivid imaginations, feel a lot of guilt and shame, and often feel like they don't fit in. They don't belong in this world. It's just not me. It's just that people are too cruel, they're too thoughtless, they're not generous, they treat each other terribly. You know, these are artists in their soul, even if they're not physical artists, but there's a lot of poets, there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of the liberal arts folks who are in this camp. So the things they have in common are they both are extremely sensitive and they don't share their feelings. I've talked to many, many suicide survivor parents, and it's not uncommon at all for them to be completely blindsided. As Michael was saying, they had friends, they were doing well in school, they were looking forward to going to college, all those check marks that the old model of suicide prevention said, you know, if those are things you worry about. These people don't worry about it. I mean, these parents aren't aware of it because it's happening under the surface. I had coffee with a guy 2 weeks ago who lost a daughter 4 years ago who was in her 20s, president of the class, going to college, having a great time, blah, blah, blah. She took her own life, and he didn't know any of this until he read her diaries. And I've talked to several parents like that. It's the greatest tragedy I can imagine. That's what's, I think, compelling me to do this work. So the reality is that more than 25% of kids this age fit one of these two types. And the reality also is that I've developed an assessment that parents can take to identify their children that's 90% accurate, over 90%, in 3 minutes. So parents can know this. Doesn't mean these kids are going to take their life or going to be depressed, but the chances are much greater. And if you know that earlier, you can do something about it, right? So here's an example. In the book, what we do is we profile parents and children. And there's 5 types, so there's 25 chapters, but they're not onerous chapters. So in the chapter, a parent will, first of all, identify their own type and their kid's type, and then their chapter talks about how they're similar with their children, how they're different, how that different impacts their relationship, how that child needs to be nurtured and communicated with, and specific tips for that, and a lot of resources. So that's the guts of the book. So let's say you've got this strategic problem solver parent, and again, it's not like these are bad parents, other ones are good parents, they're just different, and they parent differently. Just a reminder of who these people are. They're confident, they're logical, they're often high achievers, careers often come first, they're often in executive positions, they got nice houses and nice cars and all that kind of stuff. Let's say their child is one of these gentle, humble helpers, which often happens. And reminder of who this kid is, right? Well, why the parent might not get their child is because their brains are wired completely differently. They're motivated by different things. These people are motivated primarily by success, and these people are motivated primarily by being helpful. So it's not uncommon for these parents who have very high standards and they're very academically oriented to try and get their kid to do the same thing, because not out of malice, but because they want their child to be successful, right? And these kids are often not into that. They're into this stuff. You want to teach this kid, you don't read him a book, you don't lecture to him, you take him down to the pond and you grab tadpoles and you look at them under a microscope. And they're just very, very, very different, right? They just don't speak the same language. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the 5 Love Languages book, came out a while ago. Basically, it wasn't scientifically validated, by the way, but it was a theory that people express what they need for love and how other people, their partners, need for love in different ways. Some are through gifts, some are through acts of service, some are physical things, etc. Well, that's for adults who have a frontal lobe, which these kids don't have yet, right? And it's really, really hard, even when you're an adult and when you're committed to understanding how to talk the love language of your child. So imagine if you are talking to a kid that not got a lot of stuff going on here in terms of development of his frontal lobe. It's very, very hard. So this book does is try to give people language and an understanding that I don't think we see anywhere else. So the consequences, depressed, anxious, they might not feel seen because they're just not, these folks tend not to value the same things these folks value. So they naturally don't share their feelings. They might feel even less safe sharing their feelings because they're not going to get, oh, honey, come here, let me hug you. It doesn't happen that way. That's not who they are. They just don't do it. They can do it, but they need to know that they need to do it. And these parents often have very, very high expectations, very high standards for themselves. So a lot of these kids never feel validated. So what happens when you don't feel validated? Sometimes you spend your whole life trying to find somebody who's like the person that didn't validate you to validate you. And guess what? They're not going to validate you either, because that's not who they are. So you see the way this works. So what do they do about it? Well, to reconnect with these people, the parents have to understand that their feelings are really important. It's not whether it's logical or not whether it makes any sense. A feeling's a feeling, and it's got a life of its own. A hard lesson to teach people like that. These are physical kids. They're affectionate kids. They want physical, they want hugs, they want to be frequently told and shown how they feel about them. Specifics, they're going to be climbing walls. That's who they are. So let them climb the walls and surprise them. So, if you, let's say a tangible example, you're sitting down for dinner with this kid and go, you know what? Let's have dessert first tonight. Let's just, the hell with the meatloaf. Let's have dessert. And hopefully your spouse will be on. And that's like, totally takes them by surprise. It's fun. Or in the middle of something, instead of doing something they're supposed to do, let's go out and get ice cream. That kind of stuff is what they want. So if you do that, you're more likely to get them to feel more comfortable with you. And the whole point of this is to open up and share the kinds of things that they need to share. Maybe you had this experience. When I was driving my kids to school, the only time I ever learned what was going on in their life was in the car, right? They're sitting in the back seat. It's like magic. Somehow they didn't think that we could hear them and we're a foot away from them. And they're talking about who they're going out with and everything. It was wild. And of course, Barbara and I just shut up and listened and learned a lot. But, so these kids really need to be speaking with somebody who wants to listen to them and can speak their language. So I think I'm going to turn this back to you. I think the reality is that we need to reconnect, and Michael's going to tell you exactly how to do that.
I give the credit for coming up with this word to Paul, and my job was to buy into it, basically. So, but on a clinical, on a biological level, there are certain processes we have mothers sitting here, and the process of bonding, loving your child, and the child imprinting upon a parent that's feeding that child takes from it's driven by oxytocin, which is released during breastfeeding. The skin-on-skin contact, warmth, beating heart is what creates this lifelong bond between two human beings. Yes, biologically related or not, a child can be adopted at birth, and that process still takes place by holding this child. That's humanity. A puppy pile. The puppy pile of puppies, little wolves, yes, wolf babies. They all sleep together. Yes, for warmth, but also for comfort. This touch is built into us as humans. And as useful as these devices are in terms of giving us an opportunity to carry the entire knowledge of humanity in my back pocket, available to me 24/7, 365 days a year, in no way, shape, or form can it replace this lost contact of human to human, parent to child, sibling to sibling. Again, go back. I'm not idealizing. I don't know about you. I don't know about you, Sandy. I don't know about you, Raj. You know, I had a pretty challenging process of growing up, childhood. Not the easiest, not the most traumatic one, but these bonds and these relationships were formed in a playground, in the moments of peril, in fist fights, during eating really hot potato that you had to pluck out of the fire, burning your fingers and tongue. That's when these are the memories that, and experiences that created lifelong bonds that cannot be broken, of trust, basically. No screen can replace that. The process of rehumanizing, reintroducing, is a three-step process. First, we as parents, as adults, we have to be aware that something's amiss, and we have to take ownership. If I am sitting at a dinner table as a parent, behind the screen and scrolling, and my child is doing the same, and I'm yelling at the child to put it down, well, you don't understand, I'm working over here. My boss is writing to me right now. This is, what are you doing over there is not important. What I'm doing is important, right? So I'm allowed to do it. You know. What do our kids do? They do what they see. They don't do what we tell them to do. Do what I tell you. They're gonna do what I do. So we have to become aware. We have to own it. We have to understand what is the impact of this issue that was not here less than 2 decades ago. And it is here for us. And it's speeding up, it's getting faster. We have to accept basically the fact that my use, and I am as responsible or as addicted as I am making you appear to be. I have to accept that about myself. And if I have to take steps about it on this end, then it's on me. I have to own that. Then we have to take action. We have to commit to a very, very specific action by agreement, explaining why we're doing that in the language of the type of the child, so that the child can understand, why are we doing this? What is joyful with my kids? If, my wife will attest, I was born an adrenaline junkie. I am, and I'm gonna die, an adrenaline junkie. Hopefully not from being an adrenaline junkie, but from old age. But that is what I find joyful. Activities that other people look at and go, please don't do that, okay? The last words that will be imprinted on my stone will be, his last words were, watch this. I know that for a fact, okay? I know that, I accept that, I own that. That's my type. You've typed me 100% correctly. This is my type. I have to own it. Why did we jump to the beginning from? Huh? This is your piece, and I just jumped.
That's right.
No, backspace it.
This just talks about what's in the book.
This is where I end, and this is where Paul begins to tell you what's in the book. You take it.
I think I already did that. I'll just say one more thing about the addiction thing. I've been jumping up and down about this for 10 years, at least 10 years. I have had thousands of eye rolls from all kinds of people, mostly from my kids, until about 2 years ago when my daughter, who's probably the smartest person I know, said, you know what, you're right about all this. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if she was just, humoring me. But I think that what we don't think about is digital addiction is by far the most pernicious addiction ever. Very few people drink all day long, drug all day long, eat all day long, sleep all day long, gamble all day long, have sex all day long, but everybody does this all day long. I walk in Elizabeth Park pretty much every day. I'd say that with the exception of Sandy and her group, 3/4 of the people are either doing this or plugged into some podcast. Now, what they're missing is the wonder of Elizabeth Park, which is the gift directly from God. And, the birds, chipmunks, everybody gets along. The only people who don't get along are the humans. And it's, you pass somebody, they don't look at you anymore, they don't say hello, they don't. So I think that and it's like 5 billion people are addicted to this. And what's very interesting to me, I just kind of got this insight only about a month ago, because I use digital technology the least amount that I can get away with. I still have to use it at times because it's the world we live in. But it used to be, we've done a pretty good job as a culture trying to destigmatize addiction and recognize it as a disease, right? Except for this one. Because this one, the only person that gets stigmatized is the one that is not addicted. What do you mean you don't text? What do you mean you don't have an iPhone 250? What do you mean you don't, know how to do this? So it's just complete reversal. And you've had this experience. I drive down Farmington Avenue every day. Pretty much everybody that's standing for more than 5 seconds is on their phone. They're walking across the street, they're on their phone. They're walking in the park with a baby, and either they're on the phone and or the baby's looking at the screen. The average adult looks at their phone 200, 300 times a day. The average kid spends 7, 8, 9 hours a day looking at a screen. That's 1/3 of their life. So, on that happy note, I think that there really is something, AI is a different story, and maybe we'll get to that, but there is something we can do about this. And it really this is it. This is it, man. It's just all about me and you, and me and my kid, you and my kid. That's it. And I think that we've tried to create something, I think we have created something that gives people a blueprint to do that. So with that, questions, comments, tomatoes, anything? Yeah.
Can you explain, just for the sake of the live stream video, just so that
Thank you.
we can hear the audio? It's our thing. Can either of you explain the science of how the social media addicts us? What happens in the brain?
Yeah, you know that very well. It's called dopamine. No, go ahead. This is your field.
In a nutshell, that's precisely it. Think back to the very simple Pavlovian dogs experiment. Everybody is familiar with the Pavlovian dogs? It's very, very old, back in the 30s, I think 20s, 30s, where every time the food was served during mealtime, the researchers rang the bell. And in no time at all, the dogs connected the bell to the food. The food is pleasant. The food, when we're hungry, dogs hungry, produces dopamine in us. That's why food addiction exists. People use food as drug, basically, because Mother Nature designed us, everybody on this planet, every living thing, maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Right inside that equation is the mechanism for addiction. Anything that feels good, food, sex, chocolate, video game, a big gambling win, roll of the dice, will create a dopamine rush. The brain doesn't have any idea. The brain doesn't speak alcohol versus sex versus food versus chocolate versus Call of Duty game. If it produces dopamine, the brain says, I don't know what you just did, go and do that again. Please, go and do that again, and again, and again, but now do it twice as much, because it really, so we are the Pavlovian dogs, we are the researchers. We are the ones who train ourselves that the next TikTok video is gonna be really funny, okay? Because this one was just cute. The next one's gonna be adorable. So we'll go for the next one, next one, next one. One-armed bandit, keep pulling it. Eventually there's a payout. Yes, big dopamine rush. We don't know when it's coming, but it's coming, I know. And I will keep doing that until I neglect everything else. People go into their gaming dance. Dr. Greenfield and I went to Hong Kong to do a seminar on technology addiction. They took us physically into this underground gaming dance with audience much bigger than the audience we have today, 10 times the size, completely in the zone. They said some of these people have not left in 24 hours. They eat at their computer, sometimes they'll piss themselves at their computer, sometimes they'll stand up and have a heart attack, a young person, and they completely neglect the grades, relationships, washing, taking a shower, eating, or eating constantly and whatnot. All of those things become secondary to this dopamine rush of entertainment, for whatever that entertainment is. If it's a substance, it's a substance. If it is a relationship, next relationship, next relationship, next relationship, next partner, next partner, next partner. That's what it is. If it's a gambling situation, it becomes gambling. The process of addiction is exactly the same. It's wired into us, and some people are more susceptible to it. Some people will experience that rush, and they say, that was fun, and they'll go back to their normal lives and exist and live in a very normalized band of dopamine and serotonin, where a genuine rush and joy feels awesome. And if they feel low, they don't become suicidal. It's like, I'm bummed, I'm gonna sleep a little bit, I need a vacation, I'm tired. And they will do that and return back into this normal band. And some of us, 25%, give or take, once we experience life in this heightened zone, think about this. Anything that's normal is now low. So normal life becomes boring, unbearably boring. And for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, millennials, and let's face it, some boomers as well, Gen Xers, boring equals pain. And Mother Nature designed us to minimize pain. So we will go out of our way to not be bored. Can't sit with ourselves and just be. Can't do that.
I
Okay?
just want to add one thing, and that is that
Does that answer the question? Or like a way long arc over there? So.
these guys that are creating this, and they're all guys, know exactly what they're doing. They are diabolical. They, in my judgment, they all belong in jail, because what they've done to, kids, to grown-ups, to dissolve trust and reality, all that stuff. It's horrendous. But they know exactly what they're doing. That's why there's lawsuits going on now. There's suicides that have come as a result of AI actually instructing kids how to do it. I mean, anyway, so it's deliberate and it's pervasive.
And it's driven by data. It's, again, we are the ones who are responsible for training the algorithm. I like cat videos. I don't care about horses. Give me cats. You will only see cats. You're not going to see horses in no time at all. So it is built into the product for stick-to-itiveness, so that you spend the time. Why? Because on the right side is kind of ads, hey, buy this little cat stuffed toy. What about this little keychain? It's really adorable, right? Ultimately, it boils down to the longer I stay online, the more I am inclined to click on something and buy something that's, if I'm into cats, cat-related at this point. And they've got this figured out. It's all driven by an algorithm that we train with our clicks and selection. We tell them what we like. Social media is free, right? If you don't pay for the product, you are the product, plain and simple. So we are the products of something that we don't have to pay for, because we are the buyers of that.
But we do pay for it.
Yeah.
We do pay for it big time. We just don't think about the cost. So anyway, other questions that you might have or comments? Anybody? All right, well, we'll stick around, and thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate that. It's nice to see all those faces. Nice to see all your beautiful faces.
Thank you, Hannah, very much. Okay.
That was fascinating and depressing.
That was.
Well, the book has the answers.